It was a Friday morning, October 9th. It was a Thanksgiving weekend. We were getting ready to go to my dad's in Saskatchewan for the holiday weekend.
I was on the way to the airport to pick up a rental car to go to my father-in-law's for the weekend, the Thanksgiving long weekend. And I got a phone call, and it was a blocked number. And I often get blocked numbers because it's a business cell phone. And I didn't think anything of it, but it kept going off every 2 to 3 minutes. After I got the car, I came home, I called the number immediately, and it was the RCMP in Didsbury saying that your daughter was in a serious car accident and you needed to get to Foothills Hospital immediately. She said she wouldn't give me any details. And I heard a helicopter in the background, and I knew at that point that she was being airlifted.
I got a phone call from Barb, and she was saying that Kristen has been in an accident. They're just bringing her in on the STARS ambulance right now, and they're taking her to the Foothills Hospital. And as soon as you hear the word STARS, it's like, you know, this is bad. This is a bad accident. This is something that's not good.
The first time I heard about her accident was when Karen phoned me from the hospital the night it happened. And I was in Victoria on a holiday, and she phoned and said Kristen's been in an accident and she might not live. And I was like, no way, I just can't accept that, right? So I got off the phone and I started praying.
She was traveling northbound on Old Highway number 2 from Carstairs to Didsbury, and a young fellow in a Chevy pickup truck failed to stop at a stop sign entering the highway, and she T-boned him at 100 kilometers per hour in a tiny little Chevy Spark car, and he was driving a full-size pickup. They had to cut the car open. They had to cut the post and basically open the car up to get Kristen out. So it was a couple of hours before we got to see Kristen, and when we did see her, she looked absolutely terrible. She had a huge gash on the left side of her head, probably 4 inches long. So it was a massive head injury.
Yeah.
If anybody had saw it, they would have said, there's no way somebody survived this.
The days following was a lot of the medical staff caring for her. She was in the ICU for 2.5 weeks on life support. So they didn't want her breathing on her own. They didn't want her moving at all. They were trying to keep her body temperature, 34, 36, so that she was on a cooling blanket. She had ice packs under her armpits to keep her cool, because that was the ideal when you have a brain injury, a severe brain injury, which is what she had. When we were visiting her in the room there, we were in ski jackets and winter coats because it was so cold.
I remember Barb's prayer was, "You will not die." And that was very powerful.
There's so much prayer going up for Kristen, like,
So many people.
you know, so many people, like, just amazing how many people were there you just knew people were praying for Kristen everywhere for her.
I would go and sit, and then I just really thought, you know, like, I just really felt that the Lord wanted me to support this family and stay and just sit with Kristen and pray over her and read the Bible over her and, you know, just speak life into her. So that's what I got to do, and I really developed a friendship with her, even though she didn't even know I was there.
My followed the ambulance for 2 hours at Panoka. Terrible. Terrible trip, following your daughter in an ambulance, 24 years old. But when she arrived, they opened the doors and she was smiling. She gave me a thumbs up. She really didn't know where she was, though. She was conscious, but she had no idea where she was going, how long she was going to be there.
Kristen, when you looked in her eyes at that point, she wasn't there. You know, when you look in the eyes of someone, they're there as a person, right? But with Kristen, she wasn't there. A lot of her time up there, like they would post the patient's schedule along the unit where she was. You know, each patient's schedule was there, and hers wasn't as full, and that part of that was because of the short-term memory loss. She was not able to retain what she would learn in one session and carry it through to the next one. So it wasn't promising. Terry was there at the time. I went back to the apartment after the day, and I was just about to the apartment, and I got back and I thought I better go get some gas. So I went back to where the gas pumps were, and as I was filling up the car, there was a truck sitting in the parking lot, and on his back window was "God is able." You know, so I knew, okay, we've had some bad news today, but he's still with us. He's still giving us hope. You know, so it's little things like that that God has really, really shown us through this journey that, you know, he's with us. Yeah, it's happened, but it's one day at a time. All of it is just one day at a time. So it was after, probably around November, when the unit doctor was going to be away for a month or something, and so there was a doctor who had semi-retired who came to fill in for him, and he watched Kristen probably for over a week, maybe, I don't know. And he came to me and he said, there's a couple of different medications I would like to try with her. It was probably about 2 weeks before we left Panoka that I started to see a little bit of life in her eyes. So we came back and she moved into the house where she currently lives. There's 2 other patients there in the house as well. She had drop foot, you know, where your foot is just straight out. And so then the muscles on the back of her legs were very, very tight. And that was due to being in bed for that length of time. So then they started, the physiotherapist started trying to do exercises and stuff, and they tried putting her on what was called a tilt table. So she was strapped onto a table, and then the table was gradually elevated to being vertical. We remember very clearly Christmas Eve, where my dad was with us up in the hospital visiting with her, and we were there, and she started talking, just lots, you know, like, I love Mom, I love Dad, I love Auntie Donna.
I love you, Mommy.
Good girl, thumbs up, Kristen.
But it was, she came back in a wheelchair. She was not able to walk on her own. And it was probably about 6 weeks after she came back that she was using a 4-wheeled walker. And then by September, she was walking on her own.
It's not a picture, it's a video.
You're sticking your tongue out at your dad.
Very slow. Very slow. Yep. Don't talk, Joe. Don't smell it, guy.
I know.
The therapies and the physiotherapy that she got, it just was miraculous, her progress, that you know, back in September of 2016, there wasn't that kind of hope. And the agency itself has said that they've never had a patient recover like Kristen has.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're good. You rock.
Kristen's more active now, going out and stuff, and so they're keeping her occupied that way. She's started to go to young adults again, and which is good.
MPK.
And MPK, she's helping out in that as well. So that they call it the new norm.
You know, I was thinking about it the other day, and I recall a passage where there was a bunch of people that had been following Jesus and the disciples, and they scattered, and I don't remember, I can't give you the scripture reference, but I remember Jesus turning to his disciples and saying, "Are you going to leave me too?" And they said, "Where else would we go?" And for us, it is, where else would we go? There is nowhere else we could have gone. We couldn't have. And knowing that he was with us right from even before the whole thing happened, and to remember that, it was those kinds of things were anchors for us.
It was really interesting because the police officer that was on the scene, he would call us every couple weeks and update us on the case and stuff like that because of the court case. And he says, "How did you get through this?" I said, "By God's grace." He said, "I knew you were a Christian." And I said to him, I said, "If that fellow walked through that door for a coffee," and I would call him over and say, "You're forgiven.